This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, President Rodrigo Duterte pushes for the revival of mandatory ROTC.
I likewise encourage Congress to enact a law that will require mandatory ROTC for grades 11 and 12.
With military officials and lawmakers backing him up.
ROTC is a training, disaster response, discipline, commitment, and respect.
Also, the Philippines enters an agreement with China to explore the South China Sea.
What was signed was not a joint exploration. Joint exploration and exploitation violates the Constitution.
And is Memorandum Order 32 a tool to suppress lawless violence or a prelude to martial rule? House Committee on National Defense Vice Chairman Congressman Ruffy Biazon joins us live. And later, a treat for book lovers. How about a 24/7 library? That's for today's In Focus. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. President Rodrigo Duterte renews his call to lawmakers to make the Reserve Officers Training Corps Program, or ROTC, mandatory. The president is even keen on issuing an executive order to make this happen. Also, opposition groups slammed the president's move to deploy additional troops to provinces, saying this could pave the way to a nationwide martial law. And what are the measures in place to keep our territory safe as the Philippines enters an agreement with China to possibly explore the South China Sea? Let's go straight to the source of the story. House Committee on National Defense. Our Vice Chairman and Muntinlupa Representative Ruffy Biazon. Congressman, welcome back to the show. Always good to have you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, let's start with the MOU, possible exploration. Still, we don't know exactly where in the West Philippine Sea. What is your stand on this?
Well, when I read the MOU, I heaved a sigh of relief because it's not yet an actual agreement on the exploration. But it basically opens the door for future agreements between China and the Philippines. As I went through the document, of course, I was looking at the specific provision which would give basis for the exploration with China and the Philippines, but I didn't see it.
Yeah.
And it did not even mention a specific area.
No.
But again, it opens the door for future agreements.
So for now, like you said, you heaved a sigh of relief, you're okay with it, but how must we proceed with this possible cooperation?
Well, if I would give my opinion, we should really proceed with caution and always put into prime consideration what the Constitution says, that the benefit of these resources should redound to the Filipino people.
Mm-hmm. If we're looking at a benefit, and some were, the idea of a 60-40 profit sharing actually came up. I remember it was Senate President Tito Soto who said that. Would you be amenable to something like that? Does it just go down to that?
Well, to me, I would rather that we have a bigger share if we go into such an agreement. Again, that would face the constitutional question of saying the charter saying that it should be to the benefit of the Filipino people. I leave that to the legal minds to answer. Just my personal opinion, of course, we'd rather have a bigger benefit for Filipinos.
Okay, of course, there are two kinds of reactions here. Some are saying it's not a cause for alarm, and some are saying it is a cause for alarm. Let's listen, first of all, to former Solicitor General Florin Hilba. He's actually saying this MOU is possibly unconstitutional.
Yung ipinanalo mo, pinamigay mo na dati. Hindi ka na pwedeng bumalik ngayon na sabi, wait, kukunin uli namin yung naipanalo na. I would argue that it is unconstitutional because it is incompatible with the full control and supervision standard or clause.
Okay, so the former Solicitor General explaining that we have to have full supervision and control of our natural resources. Of course, this is pertaining to the West Philippine Sea. But you also have experts, sir, on this, such as Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio saying this is not really a cause for alarm right now. Even J. Batongbaca. Let's listen to their respective statements.
From my point of view, I think we're pretty safe. We have inserted the government has included service contractors. So if we cooperate, the cooperation with China on oil and gas activities will be through service contractors, we're very safe.
It also indicates that what they want to happen is that each area to be subject to whatever cooperation will have its own agreement. So it's not applicable to the entire West Philippine Sea. It's per area, parang per project, on a project basis. So that's more, I think that's a little bit more manageable.
So I just wanted you to react to both sides.
I put a lot of weight on the opinion of Justice Carpio and Professor Batongbacal, of course. They're both acknowledged experts on the subject. Especially Justice Carpio was really part of the move for Philippines to stake its claim in the South China Sea. So I would really give weight to their opinions.
Would you be comfortable, though, as a legislator, that the Philippines enter into an agreement with a country such as China, who is claiming most of the South China Sea?
To me, it's okay for us to enter into negotiations and possible cooperation agreements as long as we always put at the forefront, number one, the Constitution, that we don't violate the Constitution, and number two, the security concerns. It can't be denied that there is a conflict between China and the Philippines with regard to the claim in the West Philippine Sea. So to me, it always must be a prime consideration, those two factors.
Okay. How do you react to... it was Sol Jen Hilbay who was saying, kaliit-liit na bagay nagkakaproblema tayo. A GMA News team very recently could not really go very near the Panatag Shoal or the Scarborough Shoal. Linapitan na sila ng Chinese Coast Guard at sinabihan sila, you're entering the seas of the Republic, the People's Republic of China, and that you cannot conduct any interviews here, but fishing is welcome.
Well, it's not their territory. It's not our territory, but it is within the exclusive economic zone that was granted to us under UNCLOS. So I think we should make a stand on that. Yung pagsabi sa ating media personnel who were there, doing documentary work, I think dapat we make a stand on that.
How?
Sabihin natin na hindi namin tinatanggap. Nasabihin nyo lang na hindi kayo pwede mag-film dito. There was a statement that we should first investigate. I think we should put that responsibility on the Chinese government. We state our position that we protest what their Coast Guard did and let them do the investigation.
But that was also the case, remember, sir? Was that a couple of months ago or possibly even a year ago when our fishermen, it was also a GMA News team who caught the Chinese Coast Guard, diba? Pinasok yung,
Yes.
yung boat ng mga fishermen. These are the same fishermen, actually. This is, of course, on file. Na nilapitan nila at kinuha yung kanilang catch. At sinasabi nga, kinukuha pa nila yung magagandang. Mula nun, ngayon, I guess nagkaroon ng, I would say from what I know, nagkaroon ng konting improvement kasi hindi na kinukuha yung kanilang catch. Pero ngayon naman sinasabi, you cannot conduct any interview here without the permission of China.
Well, I don't see it as an improvement. In fact, parang medyo mas malala for me. No? Well, hindi naman sa mas malala, but it's really serious because it borders on imposing their will in an area or in a field where we also have our rights. We're talking about rights here. No? Sinasabi na bawal kayo dyan mag-cover. You know, in our country, in our constitution, diba, sinasabi nga there is freedom of the press. And kung hindi naman nila territory, hindi natin territory, but we have exclusive economic zone rights, then what right do they have to say, no, wag nyo gawin yan?
So where should we go? Who should spearhead this? Should be Secretary Taliboy Locsin?
I would say really it's the Department of Foreign Affairs. That's the role of the DFA. Sila yung may trabaho niyan.
I just want to clarify this because when you said that you don't see it's an improvement, in fact, sinabi mo nga parang lumala. Kasi kung balikan natin yung dati na kinukuha yung catch ng fish, ngayon hindi naman nila kinukuha. Pero, no.
Well, that was, yung kinuha yung fish, that was an infringement on the right of the fisherman. Pero to say to a media outfit, under our constitution, there is a guarantee of freedom of the press, at sasabihin, hindi nyo pwede gawin yan.
Without permission from China.
Parang yung bansa yung na-offend, to my mind.
Yeah, but I guess what I wanted to ask is, when you heard them say that you are entering the seas of the People's Republic of China, which is that area was less than 200 nautical miles from us in Zambales, how do you feel as a legislator?
That sounds like a claim that it's their territory. And we know what territory is, how territory is defined, diba? And obviously it's not their territory. They may have some sort of a claim, but in the eyes of the international community, that's within our sovereign rights.
So you're saying that the DFA should file what? A possible note verbal or diplomatic protest on this?
I'm not too familiar with the categories of
diplomatic
communication,
protests,
but definitely we should make them feel that we are concerned about this intrusion or this action by the CCG.
So they should file a protest. Is that what you mean?
Again, I don't know what exactly are the different levels of communication, but let's make them feel kung ano man yung, kung it's a note verbal or a protest.
From the DFA.
From the DFA.
What about Congress? Is there a plan in Congress to even look into this situation, sir?
I'm a bit cautious in initiating something in Congress because international relations, I believe, should really be spearheaded by the experts in the field of foreign relations, and that's the DFA.
All right, we'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. We'll be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, House Committee on National Defense Vice Chairman and Muntinlupa Representative Ruffy Biazon. Sir, I like what you said during the break when I asked you why not do an inquiry in aid of legislation. Can you repeat your answer,
well,
sir?
If we do an inquiry in aid of legislation, for example, in the House of Representatives, it might, or it becomes political. We are all politicians there. There are different agendas, and I think relations with other countries should be limited, or at least the first move that we do is through the DFA. Where there is the expertise on international relations. We must keep the discussion sober because the actions of the government as far as international relations is concerned will go beyond the current administration. But if we let politics play a dominant role, there might be some consequences that we do not want to happen, that it would just mainly be dominated by local dynamics.
All right, let's change topics, sir. MO32, more police and soldiers deployed to certain provinces, to areas where there is what they call sporadic violence. What are your thoughts on this? Is this something to worry about? Is this a prelude to a possible declaration of a nationwide martial law?
I hesitate to question when state forces say that there is a need for us to
deploy
more troops to maintain peace and order. Because if something happens and they did not take action, then who suffers? Well, the root of all this is Memorandum or Presidential Proclamation 55, which placed the country in a state of emergency. Initially, only in Mindanao. Proclamation number 3, Memorandum Order number 3, which followed Proclamation 55, put in some safeguards. So Memorandum Order number 32 is an expansion of the area covered. Specific, no? Negros Oriental, Negros
Samar.
Occidental, Samar,
Bicol.
Bicol region. So, in Proclamation 55, there is a phrase there which says that aside from Mindanao, in any other locations. So, I think it's just drawing on what is embodied in Proclamation 55, that in other areas when we see that there is a spate of lawless violence, we deploy.
And here are the areas as enumerated.
Yes, as
Samar, Bicol
specified.
Region, Negros Oriental, and Negros Occidental.
Yes, and Memorandum Order number 3, which put in the safeguards, is reiterated in Memorandum Order number 32.
Here's a thought, though. Some are saying that the president need not order an MO 32 on this and just ask the police and the military to augment the forces in those particular areas. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the positive thing that I see here is that there are specific guidelines on how to implement the augmentation or the further deployment of AFP and PNP, and that is embodied in Memorandum Order number 3. That's as opposed to just letting the AFP and PNP go ahead and address the violence there.
Now there
are guidelines that govern it.
And that they need to follow. Okay, ROTC, the president wants mandatory ROTC for senior high school students. In 2016, when you were elected as congressman of Muntinlupa, I think, was this the first bill you filed? One of the first bills?
First batch of bills that I filed.
You were already pushing for the mandatory ROTC, also in senior high school students, sir?
Well, there's a difference.
Okay.
In my bill, the proposal is to have the mandatory military training at the college level, and more specifically for state universities and colleges. My approach was to amend the National Service Training Program law.
9163.
Yes, the 9163 currently gives the students option whether to take the civilian service or the military training. So my approach is to amend that law, and for SUCs, make it mandatory. The concept is it's like giving back to the state which is providing assistance in education. We've done it in other fields, like when the medical students graduate, they're required to render service in the community, in the community. So it's similar to that.
Why college and why not senior high school students? I mean, that's one difference I see.
Well, I'm just looking at the program, NSTP, which is really imposed on the college students. So, as I said,
wala pang K-12 nun eh.
Wala pang K-12. But still, it applies pa rin at the college level now. Diba? So, doon ko na pinasok. I mean, during my time, we had CAT in high school, and then when you enter college, you have CMT. But this one, we're just limited to the college level.
So you're okay whether it is mandatory in high school, senior high school, or college? That's
on a personal view, I think the level of maturity would be a better consideration. That's why I think imposing it on college students is preferable.
Let's go back to the reason why ROTC did not become mandatory. You talked about the passage of Republic Act 9163, or the National Service Training Program, or NSTP. This actually made ROTC voluntary. Why?
Optional.
Because of optional. Because of alleged.
But there is still additional training. It's just that you have the choice of whether civilian service or military.
Okay, but the reason it became voluntary, I think this was in
2001 somewhere.
Yeah. 2002 was because of the death of Mark Wilson Chua, who supposedly exposed corruption within the ROTC. I guess my question, sir, is kaya nga tinanggal kasi merong corruption na ikinamatay niya. The students were protesting this, and then now you want it back. How can you safeguard such, the ROTs, the students from possible, death or even corruption within the ROTC? What safeguards are in place?
Well, there is already an anti-hazing law, and it was even strengthened recently. yun nga sa fraternities, halos mas madalas nangyayari yung mga abuses, di ba? But how come fraternities still are allowed to exist, no, in campuses? So it might have been just a knee-jerk reaction on our part that when there was an abuse in ROTC and resulted to someone's death, we immediately abolished it. But the necessity of having such a training, I think, is still there. In fact, there's been an added reason. Before, it was just really to prepare a force that we could mobilize in times of war to augment the active military service. But nowadays, especially when we passed the DRRM law, the Disaster Risk Reduction Management Law, which changed how government operates when disaster comes. There's an additional necessity now for us to organize a force that we can mobilize during calamities and emergencies. Military service training develops leadership. It teaches people organization, follow orders or follow instructions. It instills discipline. So I think those are some of the reasons that make it an appealing idea to reinstate the service.
But there is nothing in your bill that would added safeguards for such an incident as Mark Wilson Chua from happening again.
Well, there is the anti-hazing.
Exactly, yun na lang po. But you're saying that even with fraternities, such things happen. So it's as if, sir, how I understand it is, kung mangyayari to.
Well, kasi kung susundin natin yung argument na hindi kasi may namatay noon, so abolish it. Why are we allowing?
Well, you're saying meron pa rin namamatay ngayon?
Sa mga news, di ba? Lumalabas. A recent case was, forgot his first name, Atio.
Castillo.
Yeah. So, bakit walang move? Naibahan lahat ng ang ginawa lang, nagpasa tayo ng stronger anti-hazing law.
Right.
If we talk about corruption in ROTC,
yes.
Kasi nalalagyan daw yung mga
yun yung tanong.
That's another one, di ba?
Yes.
Okay.
Nalalagyan daw yung officers para hindi sila
I don't think anyone will deny na kahit na yung professor sa academic subjects may nalalagyan. So why are we banning academic subjects?
But you know, here's
I mean, if we are to address that problem, we will address it ng pantay-pantay. Kung concern natin yung corruption na nalalagyan yung ROTC trainer, ito yung professor na nalalagyan. Let's also put in some measures to address that.
Yeah.
Kasi to me, yung argument na parang selective lang yung argument natin, kung ganon. So, let's come up with safeguards. Yes, I agree with that. But to say, sa akin naman, as a proponent of ROTC, to say na, hindi kasi may corruption, i-ban natin. May corruption din yung academic subjects. Why aren't we banning it? Of course, we cannot do that because that's the purpose of education. So, I recognize that problem, then we will look into other measures to address that.
So, I guess, as a last question, sir, is there anything in your bill right now that could possibly address possible corruption in the ROTC? Meron na ho ba?
Well, my bill is just an amendment to the existing NSTP, just to make it mandatory. Addressing your question, the question that you raised, actually, even without my proposal, then we should come up with something to address that problem. Kasi nandun pa rin naman siya, NSTP, yun nga lang, may choice ka, either military or civilian.
All right. Thank you, Congressman Ruffy Biazon. Thank you for your time, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Still to come. This library is not only open 24/7, it's also free for everyone. Find out where on today's In Focus. Time now for today's In Focus here on The Source. Here's a dream come true for certified book lovers, a library that is open 24/7 and free for everyone. That's exactly what Hernando Guanlao is now operating at his own two-story home in Barangay La Paz, Makati. Guanlao is a former government employee who decided to spend his retirement lending books to people from all walks of life, especially street children who don't have any access to education. He calls it Reading Club 2000, and after donations from many groups, it is now home to almost 3 million books, reaching even the sidewalk in front of his house. The library has also distributed books to remote provinces in the Philippines. Almost 2 decades after opening this library, Guanlao learned that no one has become poor by giving books and that he has even become rich with newfound friends. Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.